Now that I've seen this movie 4 times and reread the series, let's talk spoilers. Chaos Walking. Look, I have to go ahead and say, I have a non-spoiler review out. In fact, I highly recommend checking out my non-spoiler review. 1, because it's fantastic and I did a hell of a job with it. And 2, if you haven't seen the movie, don't spoil yourself just because I posted a spoiler review, because I'm going to talk mad spoilers in this video. But ultimately, if you don't care, let me just tell you, I love this movie. I'm a massive young adult fan. I read a lot of young adult literature. And Chaos Walking, I'm not going to get into the whole speech. I've given it 1,000 times, but it's my Bible. This is my Harry Potter. This is my everything. I love this. I love Patrick Ness. I love everything about him. He is my hero. So going into this movie was arguably my most anticipated movie of all time. But as someone who has written a bunch of failed scripts that no one ever wants to pick up, I also know a thing or two about adaptations. In this video, I plan to talk about this movie as an adaptation. How does it hold up? Also, my favorite things about the movie and my personal opinions on those scenes, while also some of my least favorite parts. So buckle up and let's get talking, because this might be a long one. I don't know. I just film and record and we just say, okay, that's enough. I love the opening to this movie. The opening of this movie is actually my favorite part about the entire thing, because ultimately I was so excited to see how that they were going to incorporate the noise, and I felt like the movie's opening does a fantastic job at just displaying the chaoticness, the distraction, the confusingness of the noise, while also making it cinematic and engaging and just gorgeous to behold. The movie opens up with arguably one of the most powerful quotes from the entire series, and that is, "The noise is a man unfiltered, and a man unfiltered is just chaos walking." Seen that already? Tears streaming down my face. I couldn't stop crying. Great note. Even though we are in a pandemonium, a pandemic, or whatever you want to call it, this thing sold out. Insane. But yeah, so seeing Todd Hewitt roam around the woods with Manchi was just powerful. Simple viewers, it could be seem so small and just, introducing us to the world, but for me, it was unbelievable. The weight, the feeling that I was feeling, it was almost holy. Like the veil was getting lifted and I was seeing what heaven was going to look like. That's how it felt like, the opening to this movie. It was heaven. Jesus himself appeared while watching Chaos Walking is what I'm saying. I love the opening of this movie. I love how we got to introduce to all of our characters. I do think that Nick Jonas does a great job as Davy Prentice. He doesn't really get a whole lot in this movie, but let's be honest, he doesn't really get a whole lot in the first book. They do up the role for Mayor Prentice, who is played by Matt Mickelson, but it's Matt Mickelson. If you got Matt Mickelson in your movie, you better up his role. What they give him in this movie, I think, is fantastic. The actor David, who plays Aaron, is menacing. He does some of the most despicable things you will ever see on film. Him killing Manchi, y'all, that scene hurt like hell. And the way it is filmed, the chaoticness of handheld camera work. Doug Liman shot the hell out of this movie. He uses some 360 cameras to make the noise feel very immersive, and it's gorgeous to behold, but he also goes fully handheld in a lot of sequences. This crazy river sequence, which could have felt very OG Hunger Games, shaky cam, what is going on, but in this, it looks stunning and you feel warped into it. Let me tell you, this movie hates horses. My God. Viola can't swim. Manchi's holding on for his dear life on the raft. Todd's trying to figure out who to save. And then there's this awful shot of Todd Hewitt trying to swim against the current. And you can see Todd going backwards and not forward because the river current is so strong. And then you get this awful shot of Aaron drowning Manchi. And it is just brutal. And let me tell you, I know that a lot of people don't like watching dogs die. I get it. But there is something to be said about Manchi's death and the lack of humanity that now resides in the people of Prenticetown, that the preacher of the town would go this far without even thinking about it is just insane. Aaron felt no remorse in killing all the women. and blaming it on the spackles because he felt like it was a call from God because that he couldn't hear women's noise, that they are sinful and have no souls and must be terminated. That is dark as hell, but I love it. Sorry, women. Blaming it on the spackles, and I did like the whole little conversation about like, well, aren't y'all the aliens since they got here first? And I loved how innocent Todd is, and I love how the movie actually gets us to like Todd through humor. And while the books aren't very funny, honestly, a lot of the comedy comes from Manchi. I loved how funny Todd Hewitt is in this movie, and they make us like him through the presentation of his noise and how he can't get a grip on his noise, and it gets into him a lot of trouble. You know, him daydreaming of Viola kissing him because he's never met a girl, but he's very attracted to this girl, so it's getting him in a lot of trouble. Todd, get a hold of that, you thinking dirty. I felt like Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley had great chemistry, and their performances together was just fantastic. And I loved how each of them needed each other, and that's a great component of the books, is you never felt like one overpowered the other. And I just really, really love that. How does this work as an adaptation? I'll tell you. There's a lot changed. Yeah, there is a lot changed. As an adaptation, a lot of scenes that happen in this book don't happen. Most of it, I don't care. What I care about is getting true representation of the characters and while their themes are represented. Because this is a book that has a lot to say about how we as humans like to word vomit our thoughts out into the world without actually out processing it. And while also talking about toxic masculinity and the insecurities that men have. And I felt like that was beautifully addressed in this movie. That is what's important to me. So I don't need a sequence in which Viola goes up a bridge and that's how they escaped, Mayor Prentice and get a head start. Maybe she jumps on a motorbike and rides off. And you know what? That's just is equally thrilling to me. The only scene that I wish would have been in this movie is maybe the Wilf scene because, Wilf is pretty cool. So, and I do know that Wilf was casted and they did shoot the stuff. So clearly Lionsgate must have screwed that up because they just said, nah, we're not going to put it in. I do feel like Aaron's final scene is a bit lackluster. He gets such a brutal death in the book. And normally I don't care, like him getting set on fire is a pretty brutal way to die. The way it's shot and filmed, it's a bit disjointed and very PG-13. The man just evaporated. My only real major complaints with the movie does come in the last final act. It is a bit rushed. The whole showdown going down between Todd and Mayor Prentice, Viola trying to contact her ship, which, by the way, Viola trying to contact her ship is not in the first book. It's in the second book, but I love that they pulled that and brought it into here because it gives Viola more of a purpose and a call to action quicker than it does in the books. I would say my biggest issue with this movie, and it's the last 5 minutes, this awful sequence of when Todd Hewitt wakes up and he's in this spaceship. And the second that I saw outer space, I'm like, what? It felt so pandemic. It felt so reshoot. I'm so pro reshoots. We shouldn't even be calling them reshoots. We should be calling them additional photography because every big massive blockbuster that you love these days goes through additional photography. It's just a norm. It's how you edit it and put it all together. That's what's important. And I do feel like the last 5 minutes felt very tacked on, very rushed, very we don't know if we're going to make sequels, so we're going to give this thing a semi-conclusion because these books are notorious for their cliffhanger endings. All three 500-page books feel like one long book. I do like, the movie has some fantastic action sequences, but it wasn't just solely based off the action. It was all based off the chemistry between Todd and Viola, and I love that. And also that scene where Todd is when he finally gets her name, and it's constantly repeating it, and he's like, Viola. Comedy gold. The noise representation is just so freaking fantastic. I just love how they did it. So good. Y'all, I love this movie. I love this movie. I could talk about this movie forever. Will we get a sequel? I don't know. Releasing it during a pandemic does not give me a lot of hope. Seems like a lot of audience members are really enjoying the movie, and Daisy Ridley did say in an interview, which I know stars really don't have the power, even though they can say the stuff, that they are contracted to make sequels, and if people liked it, the studio might be more inclined, but ultimately, that's just star power. That's not the studio. And ultimately, I need to hear Lionsgate say that they want to make more sequels, you know. I would hope that they do make more sequels because the world building of this is just phenomenal. I know Mayor Prentice is still alive. If you don't see someone die on screen, then they're still alive. Him falling down, you know, he probably hurt his back, but he'll be up and good. Overall, I felt like this was a fantastic young adult adaptation. It got to the roots of what I love about the character so much. It teased a lot of things, particularly with the Spackles. I loved a lot of the character building stuff. I love that they put the book scene with Todd Hewitt not knowing how to read, and Daisy showing him and reading that. I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful scene. Ultimately, I love this movie. I've seen it 4 times. I can't wait to keep watching it. I'm just a massive young adult fan, and I love this movie, and I really, really hope that we get sequels. I will always keep pushing for it, and I hope that Lionsgate looks more than just at the box office revenue, looks at what audiences are thinking about the film, looks at the fans, looks at maybe what they did wrong and invest into making this a franchise, because I think the world building is there. There have been tons of movies that, you know, they don't completely start off strong, but they end strong. And I think Chaos Walking could be that for a lot of people. So whether you liked it or didn't like it, because I know we could talk about the critic score, but look, let's talk about the Rotten Tomatoes score. That is not as bad as it looks. I literally sat there and read every single one of those reviews. And while, yes, there are some very mean reviews, a lot of those reviews average about a 2.5 out of 5, which is just slightly negative. So ultimately, there was a lot of positives, but this is the problem with sites like Rotten Tomatoes, is they kind of clump things in either this is good or this is bad. That's why you should not be so fixated on a score a movie gets, and more about what people are saying, because a lot of these critics write amazing reviews, y'all. Just take the time to actually read them and you'll know. And ultimately, a lot of issues that some of these critics were having weren't issues that I knew that I was going to have going in. They were actually things that I was really excited about. It harkens back to the young adult genre. That's stuff that excites me. Those weren't criticisms. The stuff about the final act, yeah, that stuff holds weight. Ultimately, I love this movie. So let me know in the comments section below, what were your favorite scenes in this film? Do you want to see a sequel? Personally, I would love to see a sequel. Monsters of Men is my favorite book, so I just really want to see that book adapted one. I love this movie so freaking much, y'all. So leave all your thoughts in the comment section below, and until next time, I'm Slash Movier, and you guys have just been Slash.